We have not seen Walter since he lost his NXT UK Championship to Ilya Dragunov at TakeOver 36 in August. That ended 870 days for him as the NXT UK Champion. He and Dragunov had two of the best matches in WWE in the past 2 years. Just fantastic matches. The problem with Walter has been, what do you do with him next? In recent years, it's been said that he wasn't too keen on moving to the main roster because he didn't want to relocate to the United States. I was pitching for the longest time for him to finally move over to the main NXT brand. Even if he didn't want to relocate to the US, I thought that could be the best place for him because I didn't trust them to do right by him on the main roster anyway, and I still don't. But then they went and they blew up NXT right after he finally dropped the UK title. He finally drops the title after 870 days, and they blew up NXT. And he doesn't fit NXT 2.0 at all, especially if they're after a youth movement. Now comes the news that Walter recently split from his wife. He's now dating NXT UK women's star Ginny. They've posted pictures together on their social media. It's not really a secret. And now that he and his wife are no longer together, suddenly, it is said, he is more open to the idea of moving to the US. Not only that, but he tweeted a photo of himself in the gym looking to be in even better shape than he was the last time that I saw him in August. I mean, he's not jacked or anything like that, but, he's keeping himself in good shape. He could be preparing, it could be a sign that he's preparing for a possible move to Raw or Smackdown if he is working to transform his body in some way, because that is what you do when you go to Raw or Smackdown, right? You got to look the part. We've seen Walter on the main roster before, just wasn't full time. He wrestled the match on Raw 2 years ago against Seth Rollins in the lead up to Survivor Series when NXT was included in Brand Warfare that year. And then at Survivor Series, he was the first man eliminated 3 minutes into the match by Drew McIntyre. That gave us an early glimpse of what Vince McMahon thought of Walter. And it wasn't good. It ended the way a lot of us thought that it would. We've also seen people called up from NXT with the announcers forced to act like they don't even know who these people are. They did this big NXT relaunch and they inserted Von Wagner into the NXT Championship match, his first night in. And then they started featuring him on TV. And then one day, there he is, standing beside Adam Pearce on Smackdown. Remember that segment from a few weeks ago? Adam Pearce is in his office in the back and Von Wagner is standing next to him. He never interacted with him. Wagner never said a word. And he was never spoken of again because he hasn't been on Smackdown since. He was just there. He was just standing there like his bodyguard for one night, and it was never spoken of again. But after that segment, when they cut back to the announcers in the arena, they went to Pat McAfee. We had to listen to Pat McAfee ask, who was that guy? Like he was some rando off the street. Obviously, a lot of the people who watch SmackDown don't watch NXT. They won't know who Von Wagner is, but for the announcers to not even know who he is. Meanwhile, NXT airs on the same network as Monday Night Raw. You would think that it airs on public access the way they talk about some of these guys. They have shown very little respect to NXT, other than when it suited some sort of agenda. They went over strong at that Survivor Series because AEW had just debuted. And NXT was in direct competition at the time with AEW, and they wanted to put the brand over. And once they realized that the war was lost, they blew the whole thing up, and they finally decided, hey, it's time to go younger. It's going to take a lot of work to convince me that things would be any different with Walter on that main roster. They would call him Walter White and put a little Heisenberg hat on his fucking head. Walter is a special talent. He is very unique. He's got an intimidating look, but he's not, jacked or anything like that, but he looks like he could beat the living crap out of you. Walter is the real deal. He should be booked as such. And if WWE is interested in bringing him to the main roster, and it sounds like they are, and if Walter is ready to make the jump, then may God have mercy on his soul. But they need to treat him like a special talent, not just another NXT call-up with the never-ending coming soon vignettes. If you're going to call up Walter, you debut him in the Royal Rumble match. He eliminates more people than anyone else in that match next year. He doesn't even have to win. He just needs to establish his dominance his first night in. Not unlike how they debuted Vader in the Royal Rumble back in '96. Vader's first 2 nights in the company, he was booked like an absolute monster. What you do with Walter after that, there are several possibilities. I don't see an obvious opponent right now for Big E in the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. That could be one road. And Walter becomes the final boss on Raw the way Roman Reigns is on Smackdown. I think, looking at the 2 rosters right now, Smackdown would be a better fit because you've got people like Drew McIntyre, you've got people like Sheamus, you've got people like Cesaro. Walter could have some fantastic battles with every single one of them. Walter could be built up for a match with Roman Reigns. Now, WrestleMania is too soon for that. They do have a UK pay-per-view planned for Labor Day weekend. You could do something there. That would mark 2 years, almost to the day, for Roman Reigns as the Universal Champion. If he doesn't drop the title between now and then, whether or not they want to keep the title on him for that long, I don't know. And then there's Brock Lesnar. Now, I talked about how to get Lesnar against Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania and how Adam Pearce would be involved, right? I just talked about that. It is hard for me to fathom Lesnar losing again without some kind of shenanigans. And it cannot just be the Usos interfering in the match because they already did that once before. So that's why I pitched the idea of Lashley costing Lesnar the title on behalf of Adam Pearce, who holds a grudge for what Brock did to him. Now you've put Lesnar and Lashley on a collision course for WrestleMania. If they don't, though, if they don't want to do Lesnar against Lashley, and they have been resistant to it up to now, if Brock Lesnar gets screwed over again at day 1, and he vows to win the Royal Rumble, he's going to enter himself into the Royal Rumble match, and he vows to win so he gets one more shot at Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. How huge would it be for Walter if he debuts in the Royal Rumble and he eliminates Brock Lesnar? It was a big deal a couple of years ago. Well, it'll be a couple of years ago next month when Drew McIntyre gave Brock the Claymore kick and kicked him out of the ring. I mean, they panned out that whole stadium. Everybody was on their feet. It was a huge moment. So if Brock gets eliminated by somebody, by one person, not a group of people, that's going to be a big deal. And it would be huge for Walter, who doesn't even have to win the entire match, but just eliminating Brock Lesnar would establish on day 1 for him that this guy is somebody to pay attention to if you don't know who he is. If I have to listen to one more person complain about how small all the wrestlers are these days and all their flippy stuff, you don't want flippy? You want 2 big guys beating the hell out of each other? That's a match that people would pay to see. Brock Lesnar against Walter at WrestleMania. So that's a few different ways. I've spit a few different ideas at you right there for how they could go with this. If Walter goes to SmackDown and they eventually build to Walter against Roman, let's say later in the summer, by then you could have Imperium up on the main roster. Right now they're the NXT Tag Team Champions, Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner. They could link back up with Walter at some point in the next few months on the main roster. You could do Imperium against the Bloodline if you want. I'm not going to hold my breath on that because I thought the Bloodline against the New Day would make perfect sense for Survivor Series. And I mean, I guess we kind of got a version of that, but not really. I think that was a missed opportunity. But you could do that if you want. I want to see Walter on TV chopping the shit out of people. That's what I want to see. I want to see this guy kept special. He should not be on TV every week. But you can create an instant star if they recognize what they have in this man, what his strengths are. The one brief time they had him on TV, they failed to do that because he wasn't on the main roster. He wouldn't commit to wrestling in the United States. So of course they weren't going to, give him a big push. It sounds like he has had a change of heart. Walter has no place in NXT UK anymore. He has outgrown NXT UK. It is a small audience. He already conquered that brand. There's nothing left for him to do there. He doesn't fit into this new NXT. He doesn't belong on the developmental brand. Walter is not a roll of film. He is not a young child. The man is fully developed. He does not need any more development. There is no good reason for him not to be one of the top 5 stars in the entire company a year from now.